Hi, everyone. Before we get started, I just wanted to let you know while recording this episode, we encountered some audio issues during a few parts where I was speaking. I didn't want you to miss it because the guest shared so many insights that are just too good to miss. And so, thank you for understanding and enjoy the episode. I know I did. It's actually one of my favorites. Enjoy. Welcome back to another episode of the Leadership Purpose with Dr. Robin podcast. I'm so glad you're here and you're listening into the podcast. I really appreciate you. And because you've been listening to the podcast, you have helped us get ranked in the top 5% of all podcasts globally, according to Listen Notes. So thank you for doing that. And if you want to continue to support the podcast, go over, rate, review, and subscribe. Really would appreciate it. All right. So now you may have learned in the past couple of episodes, we're starting a new season. We're in season 5. We are over the 200 episode mark, so we've been going strong. And now we have a little bit of shift in our directions for season 5. As you may know from past episodes, I struggled for years trying to find a career that I felt was a part of my purpose and that was fulfilling to me. It was this up and down of frustration and challenge. And after 2 decades, I finally found it. And then I learned now how to always have true purpose in my life and my work. And so now I teach others how to do that. And so in this season of the podcast, I'm just bringing women on, amazing women who have stories of their career, either whether they found purpose or they're looking for it. But today, we're in for a treat. We have a panel of guests of amazing, wonderful women filmmakers who have found purpose in their work, and they're going to share their career journeys with us here today. And so today we're going to have Laura Bunbury, writer and producer, Lisa Bunbury, writer and producer, and Traci Carter Holsey, director. So again, I want to say welcome to our wonderful filmmakers. So glad you're here. All right, so now you've heard me start the podcast in our episode in this way, but let's have the listeners and the viewers hear a little bit about each one of you. Say what you're doing now, um, and a little bit about yourself. Anything you want to say about yourself and about the work you're doing. Okay, and we'll start with you, Lisa.
Oh, okay. Well, my sister and I, Lisa and Laura, we work together. So we are writers and producers, and our particular interest is television, even though we do some short film and are open to film, but our real passion lies in TV, young adult, family material, and some comedy. And so that's what we are working on right now.
Okay.
And what would you add?
Um, yeah, same. I think, you're about, we also like our backgrounds are I went to school for entertainment law, decided to drop the law and keep the entertainment. And she went to school for broadcast journalism. And we had different careers,
Different lives
and different
before we
lives
came
before
to it.
we came to it. And, listening to you and your podcast and about having purpose and
Yes.
what we call second acts,
Mhm.
really doing things you're passionate about, we knew that this was a calling.
Yeah.
And I pulled Lisa in saying we should do this together. And we wrote our first script. We were like, it was electrifying. We're like, this is it. This is what we should be doing.
It was.
And so it's just so you want to get up every day and really enjoy, even in the rough times, you want to love and be passionate about what you're doing.
And that's also last bit. That's why this is so nicely aligned. The subject we're talking about, having purpose, and what you're doing in your world and in your life, is that we did things prior to this that we were very good at, but once we came to this, it felt so right and purposed in our bodies. Like as soon as we started writing, it was like, wow, this is it. There's been lots of arcs in that journey, but we're for however this looks for the rest of our days, this is a thing we'll be doing, because it just felt so right.
I love that. And we can get into more of that later. But I love that. Okay, so Traci, now let's hear a little bit about you and the work you're doing.
Right now, I am what you call a true multi-hyphenate, but someone gave me a word that really resonated with me. I'm multi-passionate. And my career title is head of development and director. But in those, I get to follow all my passions that have accumulated up until now. So for people who grew up where I grew up, they're like, what is the head of development? So I get to read all sorts of intellectual property, scripts, magazine articles, books, you name it, and even original works, and evaluate if I think they'll have commercial value and align with the company that I'm with as something we want to produce to make into the TV show, a film, an unscripted show, or a series. And in addition to that, I get to fully realize my passion as a director in short films. And on the horizon, the goal is episodic television. So that's the professional part of me.
Yes, yes. You know, for all three of you, the passion is just coming through. I hear it in your voices and it's just beaming over here. And I'm so excited just to be in this conversation. I'm really trying to pace myself. I'm really trying to control myself. I have 1,000 questions already that popped into my mind, but this is me just talking to myself. Be cool, be cool. Okay. All right. All right. So let's go around with around one of the biggest highlights of your career, something that really warms your heart, lights you up when you think about it in your career journey. And we'll keep going in the same order. It's just easier for me to just keep track and maybe for the listeners if they're not seeing you. All right, so we'll start with Lisa.
Okay. Oh my goodness. Well, I'm gonna first off, I think one of the biggest highlights of my career now is working with my sister. I absolutely love working with her because we have no shortage of things to laugh about. Our sensibility and the way we finish each other's sentences and the way we deep dive. If we're watching just a regular television show, you know, that's a 45-minute drama, it might take us 2 hours to get through it because we're like, pause. Did you see the lighting? Did you, that piece of dialogue was so juicy. So we just really dig in and enjoy just the art forms in themselves, TV, film, all of it. So we have that in common and we have so much fun with that. So that I would have to say is first and foremost, because the how of it all I find is so important because, you know, you can be doing something and maybe circumstances aren't ideal, but if you're doing it with somebody wonderful, you can make it fun and you can find the joy. So I would say that's my first thing. And then more specifically and technically, I would say one of the big highlights was when we were early on in our time here in Los Angeles. And we took on a project, just kind of a referral. It was random. It was a quick turnaround, had to get it done in 2 weeks. And then that little baby became a unicorn and wound up winning a grand prize at Cannes, and then went on to place in 47 festivals internationally and in, you know, the States, and won over 9 awards. And so that was a phenomenal experience, the way it all came together. And so I would note that. And Laura, what are your thoughts?
Well, she stole my answers.
Let me interrupt and say congratulations. Congratulations. We want to honor everything. And I noticed when you were talking about when you were watching an episode together and you noticed the lighting and all that, and I saw Traci like nodding like she could appreciate that. So I just wanted to make a note of that. Okay. All right. It's interesting because you have shared experiences, but I mean, you probably have individual perspectives on them. So, all right. So Laura, we'll go to hear your perspective on your response to that.
Well, yes, she stole all my answers, so I'm gonna have to come up with something. I think with all of our projects, even ones that don't go exactly the way we want them to, they're all lessons. So I think when we go into things, we go into everything as, okay, what's the lesson and what's the blessing that we can pull out of this, even if it doesn't totally go our way. And I think that all of our projects I love. So I think I'd have to say it's the people we connect with, and the people we get to work with. Like Mary Lou Belli is a Emmy Award-winning director who's a good friend of ours, and we get to work with her often. Traci, connecting with her, just even the way it happened and being able to reconnect. Because Traci's such a giver as well.
And a light.
It's, I think, been the real accomplishments in this business, because it is at the end of the day relationships and who you work with, and it's all of those moments that we get to build with those people that just make it what it is.
And that's what we remember. Those
moments.
Yeah, I love that. And since you're talking about relationships, it reminds me. I want to tell everybody how we came together. We were introduced by, because we're talking about relationships, and I completely forgot to say this earlier. We were introduced by an amazing filmmaker, Mary Trunk, who is a friend and colleague of mine at the university where I teach. And so I want to give a shout out to Mary Trunk. So Mary, if you're listening, thank you. Okay, so now before we go again.
Mary is amazing. We adore her, and thank you to Traci for introducing us to her.
Yes, she is really amazing. All right, so before we go on to Traci, I want to say one more thing. Lisa, you were talking about how the film or the project went on to win awards. Can you mention it, or would you rather not? Like, what was it?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
The project is called Tuesday, and it was a social commentary piece, a short film, and it went on to win a prize at the American Pavilion, which is one of the awards that happen in the Cannes Festival. And what else are we going to say about that?
Oh, and the first award, the big award that it won, was for Princess Stephanie of Monaco.
Yes. He, our director, who was a lovely gentleman. He was a lawyer. He was French, French born, lawyer, but he lived in Switzerland. And he reached out. So it is a really interesting story. He reached out to a dear friend of ours and said, "Hey, I'd like to come to the States. I want to film this thing." And she was an acting coach, and she goes, "Well, I can't do it, but I know these lovely women that can." So she's like, "Let me put you in touch." She doesn't know him. We don't know him. So we talked to him. He's like, "Hey, I want to come there in 2 weeks." I'm like, well, friend, we don't know you. So you're going to need to send us the money up front to do all these things that you want to happen. And he said, "Sure." Sent us strangers the money. We pulled together and actors. We even do a little, the script doctoring, because it's second language. English was a second language. And so just supported his whole process. He comes there. It was wonderful. A little unicorn. Everything
shot in a day.
Came together, shot it in one day.
Wow.
So it was really fantastic experience and a powerful message. It's a short film with an unexpected, twist at the end. You don't see it coming. And but he was very big on doing commentaries about different big issues in life. So it was a really impactful piece, and interesting journey to how it got to Cannes was he was showing it in the States, and we were at the Pasadena Film Festival. It showed there. We came to the talk back, and one of the judges at the festival said, "Oh, you know what? Loved your film. Sorry you didn't win anything here, but you should join my festival." We're like, "What's your festival?" She's like, "Well, here, take my card, look it up." And so her festival was one of the ones at Cannes, and we're like, "Well, all right." So she's saying we should join. So we told her director, he submits, we get into the festival. So we're going to show. So for us, we're like, we've won. We're good. We got in. We're, running with the big dogs in Cannes. All right. So we were good. So then she really kept reaching out, encouraging us to, you know,
Come and join the
so
festivities.
glad that, you know, we entered and whatnot, but we couldn't, you know, we couldn't go there. We were on to the new gig. And it was just so funny. I was sitting in a Starbucks, waiting for my oil change. My car was in the shop. I'm sitting in Starbucks, and then I get a strange call, European number. And on the other end, now did Mary Lou call me first, or did
No,
you call me first?
Mary Lou called me, and Oscar called you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so Oscar, our director, calls and he's like weeping and barely, you know, understandable. He's like, "Oh my gosh, we did it! We did it!" I was like, "What happened? What did we do?" And he's like, "We won! We won!" I was like, "Oh, you did? That's great!" And so, you know, 2 minutes on the phone with him, hang
And
up.
then Mary Lou
yeah.
called me, and I was somewhere different.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Excuse me, young lady, why haven't you told me you entered?" Because she teaches and does some directing coaching in the and she goes, "Why am I sitting in the audience and I see Lisa and Laura Bunbury present? Why did I not know about this?" She's like, "You guys just won." And I said, "What did we win?" She goes, "The whole prize. You guys just won."
Oh,
And so it was a really cool moment. Really cool moment.
So fun. And
it's wonderful.
it was just like, it was hilarious because I'm sitting there having coffee and I can't get off the phone and I'm like, but I'm by myself and I'm just like, okay, it was just one of those funny moments where we just kept going with work, you know, and didn't, you know, go to France for any of the festivities. But it was just a really cool experience. Really
Yeah.
cool experience.
I love the connections with people, the relationships and people. And I say that for the people who are listening, you just never know. If you continue to do the work, you just never know who will see it and can help you on your journey. All right. So Traci, now we'll go over to you. Do you want-
Well, that's such a big question, highlights of my career, because for me, it has all been a highlight. If I put it in the phrase, if I frame it from the perspective of teen and tween Traci had lots of big dreams. And it always felt like I was in a place that was unlikely to manifest. But adult Traci can look back and realize that purpose and passion can navigate you where you need to go, regardless of your physical location. So I'll set the stage for you. East Cleveland, Ohio, early 80s. There was this little station called Black Entertainment Television. And it felt so far away. It was in Washington, D.C., but it may as well have been on another planet because I didn't know people. I didn't have the knowledge, the access. All I had was the passion, was that I want to be on TV. And young Traci would tell anyone who would listen. And luckily, there was this North Star guiding light of what I believed I was called to do. Because now that I think about it, the response was always, "Oh, how are you going to be on TV? You don't know how to get there. What are you going to do?" But that didn't even bother me because I don't know what they were talking about. I was going to be on TV. And so one of the highlights came from, there was a young girl named Kim Fields on Facts of Life who would ride around in roller skates, and I wanted to be Tootie. So let's take it all the way to adult Traci, who has now moved to Los Angeles and is looking for an acting class and is now in class with Kim Fields and her mother, Chip Fields. So you couldn't tell me I hadn't arrived at that time, because that was something that I always wanted to do. If you want to add into the on-camera narrative of it, one of the reasons I went to Howard University, because my boo thing, my idol, Debbie Allen, and her sister Felicia Rashad went to Howard. So you didn't even need to tell me where I was going to college. I was going where they went. I recognize in hindsight, I've been telling my parents I would do the shows on the fireplace, make everybody stop on commercial break to watch me, to do what I wanted to do. I was a theater kid. All this time, I knew that when I would read books, I was a voracious reader. And I would say as a child, "Oh, I wish I could get paid to read books." So imagine the thrill of 9-year-old voracious Traci when she got hired as the head of development with Niecy Nash Betts. Here's a stack of books, read them and see if we can make these into TV shows. So it just never would stop. On camera Traci, when I got my first on-camera job at Black Entertainment Television, and I went back to Cleveland, and I would hear stories like, I was sitting in the barbershop and I thought I heard your voice. And I looked up and there you were on screen seeing. Or my uncle calling saying he was taking a nap and he thought he heard my mother's voice. And then he listened again and it was his niece's voice, and he turned on BET and there I was. And me not understanding how that presence on camera would affect people around me who often doubted or naysayed on how you're going to do that. I didn't know, but my passion and my desire always put me in the place. So locally, it was the local theater. At school, it was in the school theater. And that's what lead me out to Los Angeles. And the stages kept getting bigger and bigger, and the network wider. I didn't know how I was going to get it, but I knew I had a passion. And wherever I was going to find a way to be in that passion. And it kept opening the next door, the next door, the next step. So I've had lots of them, but that's just a few highlights of my career.
I love them. And we can all feel and hear that you are a masterful storyteller.
Well, I've been working on it for a minute.
Yeah, because you took a lot of story and just brought us along on the journey, and it was wonderful. So now I have a question about your Kim Fields moment. Did you know she was going to be in that class, or it was just like, were you intentional about ending up in the class with her? I know
I was
it was
looking
a
for
dream.
places to study, and funny enough, she was on the show on Living Single at that time, so it was known that she was an actor. But her first class was so full that I ended up going to her mother's class, and that's where I would meet. I know you might know a little talk show called The Sherry Show. Sherry Shepherd and I met. We had a friend named Bone Hampton, who's a comedian. And I remember those early days. Sherry's like, can you give me a ride? I keep getting fired from my jobs because I go to lots of auditions. So I don't have a car right now. And we bonded in that car. And Sherry's work ethic at that time really raised the bar for me. We would go on auditions and I'd hear Sherry saying, I have to take off tomorrow so I can work. At that time, I would take an audition inside and work for an hour or two by myself. I found out Sherry would find somebody to read with her and work 7 to 8 hours to book something. And she was starting to book series regulars and guest stars and always on the road doing comedy. And I was like, she raised the bar up there. She would do things like every time she booked, would get a postcard, send it to people. So she was my first example of professional iron sharpening iron, because you might think you know, but there's always somebody out there putting in several more hours who doing the work to the place that you realize there's more you could be doing to get to where you want to be.
Yes.
But I was intentional about Kim's. We didn't get there the first time, met a wonderful group in her mom Chips, and then we eventually all got into Kim's class. Like the next semester, we graduated to it. But I was very intentional about being in that class. It was not an accident.
And there's a lesson in that too for everyone, to be intentional, right? A couple lessons from your story. To be intentional, set out and do the thing you intend. And the additional lesson you got from Sherry was to go beyond, go the extra mile, go the extra mile. Yeah. So we've been talking about the highlights of your amazing careers, and I could talk to you all day and all night about these highlights. But let's move on in the conversation, because I'm thinking, people would, and there's all types of women in different careers who are listening, not only filmmakers, whatever they're doing in their office job or whatever. But sometimes they feel like when they hear people like all of you who have found a place where you want to be, they feel like, oh, that can't happen to me because I'm going through challenges or whatever their frustrations are. So share with us one, I mean, I'm sure there's many, one or two frustrations or challenges you had to overcome somewhere in your journey. Maybe one of the biggest ones, and that you made it over in hopes that if somebody's going through some frustration or challenge, they realize at some point they can overcome that. So we'll start back at the beginning with Lisa.
Yeah, I think it's real easy to get caught up when you talk about, oh, we had this wonderful win at Cannes and it was so fun and it was a unicorn. And we talk about this great moment, right? But that moment is sandwiched in tons of no's, tons of disappointments, tons of questions about, a project. Is this going to work? Is it not going to work? Are we going to get it? Are we not going to get it? The reality of what we're doing, and and this goes in any type of career, when you're pushing forward for big things, it is a road filled with ups and downs. It's not most times. Now, I'm sure there are some anomalies out there, but it's not most times like, oh, I'm going to start this thing, and tomorrow I've got all the big prizes and I've got all of the everything. It's not that way. So I think it's important for people, when they're thinking about going for their passion, or they're in a thing and it's not the thing that really speaks to their heart, the advice I would give on that is to just start. People get caught up in, it's got to be, and I am guilty of it as well. It's got to be like X, Y, and Z, or I can't begin, or it's got to look like this, or it's not going to work. Forget all of that noise, nonsense, things that you build up a no for yourself before you've even received it. Just jump in and say, what is the small thing that is in my power to do that gives me joy, and do it. And then build on that. If you are enjoying yourself, you are operating with passion, even in just the smallest step forward, it will build. That's how we did it, because it's not like we jumped out to all of the things, and trust me, we're still on the journey. It's a lifelong journey. You can listen to some of the biggest names out there in any field, and they will tell you the same, and they still, on whatever the levels are, encounter the disappointments or the struggles or the challenges. So don't be deterred. Start somewhere. Just start.
Yeah. So that brought us to the just start, and to keep going within the ups and downs. So Laura, how would you say, because you're sort of on this journey together, what's one way you kept going? Like, there had to be something to keep you going, because lots of people, because you said, Lisa, start and keep going with the ups and downs. Some people get the first no and they're like, I'll forget it. This is too hard. I can't do this. Or they think maybe this is not the thing for me because it didn't work out the way I planned it, or the way I hoped, or the way I've been dreaming since I was a little girl. So what's something that helps you keep going, or help you keep going throughout the ups and downs, Laura?
Well, for me, I guess I'll say I'm a big risk taker. Growing up, no was never in my vocabulary. So I'm very much like, if I want to do something, I want to do something. So I was always like, I'm the type of person that when I want to do something, I'll go and learn it. I'll even say, oh, I'll intern to learn it. Because the more I take in and the more knowledge I have, the better I can be. So I've always been the type of person that when I did something, I did it for as long as I wanted. And then when I wanted to try something else, I did. Because the way I look at it is, even in your failures, you learn. And so you have to take those opportunities to do things you're passionate about. Because I think Lisa, our dad will say this, because when Lisa, she had a big corporate bank job and was an exec. And when I was like, decided I didn't want to be a lawyer anymore, I was like, hey, come on, let's go to LA. And my dad was like, let's not corrupt my other daughter, please. And so
He's old school.
He's old school.
Yeah.
So he sports us now, but he's like, what? He's from the Caribbean. So he's like, what are you doing with my daughter who's got a good 401k over here going out to Hollywood? But I was like, we're going to take this chance because I want to wake up every morning and do something I'm passionate about, even if it's hard. But I think the biggest thing that helps me get through things is one, our faith, and just knowing that, okay, trusting in God for everything, and knowing that perfect timing, because there are things that I have wanted and thanked God that I didn't get. So I think it's important to really, journaling is a big thing. Lisa's a big journaler, which got me into journaling, and just looking back, taking a collective time to 6 months ago, a month ago, a week ago, of things you wanted, and seeing the things that you did get and the things you didn't get because something better came.
Yes.
So it's not easy. It is hard in everything. If you decide one day you wake up and you're, working as a executive assistant in an office, and then you say, you know what, I want to be a nurse. Look into figuring out how you're going to be a nurse and see how you can do both at the same time until that thing you're passionate about becomes the full-time thing. But I always think, life is short. Live it. Take the chances. Take that step and do the thing you want to do. And don't wait, because if you take that one step tomorrow, you can look back in a year from now and be like, wow, look at where I'm at. You'd rather say that than a year from now being like, wow, I wish I would have started.
And even if you can only do one small thing a day, in one year you've done 365 things.
Right.
That's good.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Mhm.
All right. So I just want one more follow up on this while we're on this kind of part of the conversation. Lisa, you had your father admiring you for the 401k job, and you were doing all the things. And so I'm thinking there might be somebody just on that point right there thinking about the expectations of other people. People are proud of me. I have
Yeah.
this good job. It would be great. People will think this is crazy, and that's the reason why they're not making the move. And so, okay, maybe your sister had a very compelling argument, but there had to be more. I mean, we could tell she's charming, but there had to be more to help you say, I'm going to leave this thing for what society says is stability, my family and friends are proud of, and that I'm
Yeah.
apparently good at and doing well to do something else. What helped you make that shift?
Well, I took a step back and said, because there was a transition point in my banking career where, they were saying to me, we'd like you to go and take this next big step. And I took pause and said, okay, if I do this thing, I'm putting myself on a very aggressive corporate track, which would be well and good for someone if that was what they were really seeking. But there was something in me that was very much interested in the creative side of it all, and something in me that didn't fully feel satisfied. And I said, if I do this right now, I may not be able to extricate myself to do other things. And not even just career, but I was like, the way my schedule is, will I ever be able to, slot in family or relationships and all that? Because I was a real, driven career girl, which, I still am in a different way. But I took pause there and I said, I want something different. It was not an easy choice. And believe you me, anyone who is listening to this and you've got all your stuff set up and you got your mortgage and not your mortgage, your 401k, and you get those steady paychecks, because we all know in this creative world it is,
Feast or famine.
Yes. So I had to take serious pause. Now, of course, I did take some calculated precautions and steps, because we had other things happening as well. But I just said, I need to do this for me. And I just chose the more unconventional path, which, listen, that's not for the faint of heart, because when you're used to a certain thing or a status, or you get to go out here, you don't have to really, count those pennies too much. All is, popping on all cylinders. And then you go to your, creative endeavors, and you're like, well, maybe let me start to make a little budget for myself. So it gets real different. And you just have to literally count the costs, weigh it out. But honestly, I'm the type of person that I, I have to have that peace within me, and I have to follow that. When that nudge hits me, I listen to it. When that little voice is like, go this other direction.
Mm-hmm.
I listen to it, whether it's the unpopular one, whether it's the one that you leave your fancy thing that, you know, the family's, you know, so proud of you and they love, oh, she's got the VP title and blah, blah, blah. I said, I need to do this for me. And so if you have the wherewithal to do it, have a plan, and take your time if you need to, but, you know, start to explore it, maybe slowly, if you can't, you know, do it all at once. Because I didn't do it all at once.
Right. And just last thing to add to that is everyone has New Year's resolutions. We're in the last quarter of this year. Don't wait for the new year. Start your plan now. Start your plan now so that you can start putting things into motion. You can go at your own pace, but start doing something that moves you closer to your dreams and your goals.
Mm-hmm.
It just felt like that. It just went right into somebody's heart. It just felt like it just went right into somebody's heart. So thank all of what you're saying, because I feel like they're in that moment right now. And so what I hear is trust yourself. In addition to having a plan, of course, have a plan. Start right away. Listen to your inner voice, your intuition. The thing you know that's talking to you, listen to that. So I feel like that's speaking right into somebody's heart right now. Okay, so Traci, now let's go to you.
So much delicious gems, so many delicious gems out of what you said. I'm going to take it from a similar thing of what they said, and then I'm going to clarify what I had to tell myself based on what you just said, because there have been many frustrations, but the peace came when I realized that my purpose wasn't a destiny, but an evolving journey. Yes. But it took the first part of my entry-level career to come to that. And I recall being on a real steady trajectory in production, and it could be parallel to any entry-level type of job. You get a certain level, and then it's time to decide what's the next step. And I remember I had been in the Producers Guild. I had put a lot of my acting and on-camera pursuits aside, and I was like, I'm going all in on producing. I am a producer. And it was so obvious that my skill sets lined up so well. I'm detail-oriented. I have a knack for logistics. I have a natural empathetic spirit that makes me want to care for people, and I care how they're doing. That served me well as a producer. The path that I chose, though, of independent producing, there was never steady income. It was from job to job. And we got to a point in both the industry and our economy where I felt I had to make some choices. I would hear people tell stories about, oh, they slept on someone's couch, they couch surfed. Well, I came to a place where I didn't have family. I didn't have people's door I could knock on. And I felt at that time I didn't have that deep of a knowledge of what I could do outside of the industry. So I decided that there was a temporary agency that I could still be career adjacent. It sounded good on paper, but then I had that conflict. I'd be up on like the 40th story of a studio looking out at the sound stages, and it felt like it was a million miles away. What am I doing up here? I'm supposed to be over there. I'm a producer. And then that made the survival things I was doing feel so hard. It felt demeaning. It felt like I was working beneath what I was doing. But then I would see people who, this was their daily job. It was what they chose. And I would try to find the dignity in that. I'll never forget one day where I had maybe 10 or 12 projects under my belt as a producer, but the job I'd signed up for as a temp required me to go get the coffee, to make the copies, to go find some cherries for the executive in the C-suite where I thought I should be sitting. And I'll never forget one day I went to my car and I just wept. And I said, I'm a producer. And it was like I was talking to myself. I was wiping the tears. I was, well, if you're a producer, act like one. Produce something. You have all these people that you know. Just because it didn't work out doesn't mean it can't work out. And I took on this seed time and harvest mentality. I was like, all right, what are we going to do to reap this producer harvest this time next year? We got to start sowing some seeds now. Because my dad had said something like, what seed do you know that you planted today and it grows tomorrow? It's going to take time. What you going to do during that time? So I determined as I was getting my face back together, when I go back every day when I get off from work, for the next 30 days, I'm going to reach out to a fellow producer, a director, writer, somebody I know. I put together my wish list. That day when I got home, the very first producer, I'd always wanted to work on a show, Iyanla Fix My Life. Someone I'd worked with 10 years prior at BET was now a producer. So of my 30-day goal, that day, without an interview, he passed my production resume. And within 2 weeks, the 2 weeks notice I gave the people, I was a producer on a show I'd always wanted to be on, Iyanla Fix My Life. I would go on to be on the show for a season, go to Georgia, Maryland, all over Los Angeles as a producer, because I was like, you know who you are. You're in a temporary situation. And I'd always been told, don't make long-term decisions based on temporary situations. And I told everybody there I was a producer, and people would see me getting the coffee in the break room like, okay, well, why are you here? And they would question me in such a way that made me have to put my shoulders back. And it didn't matter what location I was in. I'd already, I would say, 2,650 miles from my family. I'm getting what I came for. And that would begin, I would begin to read bios about people that I saw were where I wanted to be, and realize that, oh my goodness, they went through this, they got that. So I began to realize that the journey isn't linear. There's going to be peaks and valleys. Success isn't this one destination. Okay, I'm here. It is an evolving journey that I'm going to continue to have to plant seeds so that I could harvest. I would even sometimes say, oh, like I just said last week, what could I do that make 2025 Traci so happy that I did this for her? If I get tired, if I get off track, if I get disgusted, I'm like, 2025 Traci's like, are you doing the thing? I'm waiting over here, So it's a constant staying on task. And I even would take note cards and do a little graphic like dirt. And so say for my directing career, what are the people I need to know? Someone told me on one of them, as a director, to get into TV, if you haven't already grown up in the system, one thing you can do is to shadow working directors. So it was like, if I want to read this episode, on one of the shadow episodes, someone told me there's 14 people you need to for an episodic studio, the production company, and sometimes the other directors. So I looked at I was like, I have lots of seeds, because it really isn't who I know, it is who knows me. Shalom, just on. So I put my little dirt thing, I would put my little Post-its. These are the production companies I need to know me. Here are the executives at that company that I need to know me. And here are the studios I need to know me. What do we need to do? And it became almost day one, an email campaign, a call campaign. And obviously, when I was a child, we didn't have social media and internet like this. So I was like, oh, my tools have gotten so much better now. The things that would take me 2-3 weeks to find and look and do, we've cut straight through that, and I can get to pop, 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 pop to the people I want. I was like, oh, this is fertile soil. Let me work it. I realized it doesn't always take money. My contacts are my currency. I spend what I have. I sow what I need to, and then the harvest have been bountiful.
Yes, 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 yes. I love it. And so many levels, so many nuggets in that story. And good for you for all of you for continuing to go forward in that. And so Traci, I see, and you had your intention, and you said, I'm going to be true to who I am and what I want. And does my current situation reflect that? If not, how can I make it reflect that? And it sounds like you're still doing that. It seemed to be a guide for you that has served you well. And hopefully it will be a guide for others who are listening. So thank you for sharing that powerful story. Okay, so then the last round, let's go around and leave the listeners with one anything you want to say that I haven't had a chance to ask you, or something sparked in your mind, like, oh, one more thing. So whatever your one more thing is, or something you want to leave people with, and then we'll let them know how they can be in touch with you in case they want to hear more, like, wow, these are fascinating women. And I would say, yes, they really are. So then they can be in touch with you. All right. So what's your one more thing? Let's start with you, Lisa.
Um, I would say that the final thought I would want to leave people with is, in as much as it's in your power, as much as you can, operate in joy. Operate in joy, because at that point, whatever you're doing, you're going to be filling yourself with the good things. So, what lights you up? What makes you feel great? What makes you, laugh and just reflect on a day and feel so fulfilled and satisfied? Um, find those things and spend as much time in those as you can.
Thank you.
I think last things I'd add is Traci really hit on something that a lot of people might not think of, that Lisa and I do, and Traci does as well, is the lists. A lot of people don't realize how many people they do know, or people they know that know somebody. So I think a big thing to do is to get out that legal pad or that piece of paper and write down all the people you know that you can reconnect with, or grab a coffee, or just, see where you can build those relationships, because people will sit there and say, oh, I don't know anybody. And then when they sit and write a list, like, oh, I got about 50 people on this list. So I think that something Lisa says all the time, that we say all the time, begin with the end in mind. So I think that would be my takeaway. And you got this. You can do it one step at a time.
Yes, yes. Okay.
The one more thing, I have so many more one more things, but since Lisa and Laura are here and they actually helped me with one of my one more things, understand that you do not have to do everything by yourself. I grew up with this narrative that to ask people for help was some sort of form of weakness. And since I mentioned Iyanla Fix My Life, it was at that show that she did an episode and talked about the difference between independence and dependence. And she helped me to get rid of that narrative that asking for help was some form of weakness, but that it's absolutely the assignment to build community. And bringing it to a recent thing, my daughter, I have a 17-year-old daughter who is applying for college right now. And she wants to do, so she will be second generation college in our family. And she wants to do something that she doesn't see a lot of people that look like her doing, which is animation. And so while I was able to help her educate herself, it was the interpersonal skills. When I asked, why aren't you doing she got all the artwork together, but she wasn't embracing the essays about herself. And finally, one day we got down to it. We're almost there. Why you don't want to do it? And she says, because my story's not important. Who wants to hear it? And this big mama bear part of me came out like, but you're worthy. Cut to me doing my own resume and getting stuck on the summary part and feeling, because I lived it, it didn't feel special. It didn't feel like it was worthy. And then I heard my words to her. You don't need a list of accolades and bullet points and awards to be worthy. You're worthy because you are. So we're going to reprogram that, what you've seen on social media, what you get from commercials, because at some point, maybe I've been part of the problem through the stories I've told, the way I cast things, the way I speak about things that are valuable to me in some way may make you feel less than. Maybe I've internalized it. So the one thing I want to say is each person needs to embrace their own worthiness without needing to qualify or quantify your worth. Because I think it's underestimated how much that makes you get stuck, how much it dictates the path you're going to go, how much it gives you energy to go talk to somebody who may be at what you consider a higher station, like, because, oh, what do I bring to the table? You bring your unique experiences and your worth. So worthiness is a big thing for me right now, to my friends, knowing that you're worth having a community of people who care about you. It's okay to ask people. You are not a burden. You're a part of the community. And it's okay. You're not dependent or weak. You're growing a community. You're collaborating. What do they say? If you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go with others. I'm going to drop the mic on that one. Go with others.
And we Lauren, were you trying to get it?
Oh, I just wanted to add to that something I heard that goes with what Traci said, that Viola Davis always says is, closed mouths don't get fed.
Ask.
You got to ask.
I hear those mics dropping all over. Few mics dropping here. Okay, right. So I'm sure people are saying, I want to hear more. How can each one of you say, how can people be in touch with you and contact with you? Start, Lisa.
Yes. You can find us on Instagram or on all the socials. We're the Bunbury Sisters.
No, Bunbury Sisters.
Bunbury Sisters.
Bunbury Sisters
yes.
at Instagram. And then our website is bunburysisters.com.
Yes.
Okay. And Traci?
And thank you.
And then mine is my website is www.directedbytraci.com. And you can continue the conversation there.
Okay, wonderful. We'll be sure to have that in the description and in the show notes so people could reach out to you. And this has been one of my most enjoyable conversations ever. That is true. I can go on all day listening to you and your stories. I just feel like you are such an inspiration, and I feel it touching the hearts, the minds of the people as they're listening and watching this. So thank you so much for taking time out of all you're doing to be here today.
Yes, thank you for having us.
What a pleasure. Thank you, Robin.
So glad you're here. And thanks again to Mary Trunk for connecting us.
Thanks, Mary.
Mary.
Okay, everyone, as I said in the beginning of the episode, after my long journey of figuring out how to always living my true purpose, and I always do, I know how to do it and I teach others. And so if you're trying to find out how to do that and you want to do that, follow me on social media and especially LinkedIn. I'm always giving tips and advice on how to do that, giving lessons from my experience. So on all the social medias, I'm at Robin L. Owens, PhD, at Robin L. Owens, PhD, but I put most of the content in LinkedIn. All right, and until next time, this is Dr. Robin.